The enigmatic canvas, unveiling dark secrets. Scary story. It may sound strange, but a few years ago, I found some porcelain and plaster sculptures in the middle of nowhere. I usually pass by a desert plain every day where unscrupulous companies dump their waste. My means of transportation is the bicycle. I travel daily, about 60 kilometers in total, from Tlajomulco de Iga, Jalisco, to downtown Guadalajara, where I work. Riding such a distance has given me the opportunity to find interesting things on my way. Those of you who are cyclists will know what I am talking about. The place I am talking about is a very wide street that crosses diagonally. You can find abandoned industrial buildings and even a rusty trailer. It is not a very busy place because it really looks bad. I think the only people who circulate the area are workers who are employed in the few companies that survive, as well as homeless people who come in the hope of finding something of value in a desert plain in which the whole story I'm about to tell you takes place. It all started one day on my way home from work. As fate would have it, they let us leave early, although due to the distance between my work and my home, I usually walk about an hour and a half. I left the company at approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It must have taken me about an hour to get to that street, so the sunlight was still illuminating the streets. The street was empty. No pedestrian or animal could be seen walking on the sidewalk. So I got on to pedal on it, because this area, although it is not very busy, from time to time very heavy cargo transports pass by, always keeping a continuous fear of not being seen and die run over by one of these huge trucks. As I was pedaling on the sidewalk, I crossed one side of the plane, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something that caught my attention. There were several objects. In the distance, they looked like mannequins, although their color was not the same as the plastic they are usually made of. I approached the wire fence that protects the land. The steel it is made of was very deteriorated, and at certain points there were openings. I managed to enter through one of those openings, where the mesh was broken, in order to get a closer look at the sculptures. It took me a little work to enter with everything in bicycle, since it is an old and heavy bicycle. Once I was close, I realized that they were not mannequins. They were sculptures made of porcelain and plaster. There were also some paintings and some huge canvases folded on the floor. I unrolled some of those canvases and discovered that they were actually huge canvases, showing images of dark themes. The sculptures, which I had to see twice, because at first glance, one would think that they were in poor condition and had missing pieces, but no, the lack of certain limbs seemed to have been made on purpose, as well as the faces, which I will try to describe a little by memory. The 3 sculptures were wearing some kind of white masks. One of them reflected a feeling of anguish. Another sculpture was shaped like that of an angel, only that its face reflected fear, and the last sculpture had horns. I guessed it was some kind of demon. Its mask seemed to represent anger. The artist who made these sculptures was very skilled, as he managed to perfectly capture the emotions in the faces he sculpted on the masks. Reviewing the paintings and canvases, I noticed that they all had the same signature, which I could not identify. It was just a poorly done scribble. One specific canvas caught my attention. It showed 3 images similar to the sculptures, but a more vivid one. I felt the temptation to take it with me, to place it on the front wall of my living room. For this, I started looking through the trash for something with which I could tie it to the frame of my bike, because due to the size, it would be very complex to put it in my backpack. After searching for a while, I found a piece of Ixel ribbon and proceeded to tie the canvas that I'd previously rolled up. While I was doing this, I realized that it was getting dark. I looked at my watch. It was already past 8 o'clock at night. The day was gone. Looking at the sculptures on the plane, I turned again to see the sculptures, and I noticed that they were looking straight at me, which made me jump with fear. However, after thinking for a few moments, I thought that maybe these sculptures were in that position from the beginning, and I did not remember it. But I was wrong, because when I looked back, the canvas, horror story. As I reached the opening in the mesh, a strange-looking woman blocked my way. She had the face of a madwoman. She looked at me and began to curse with a shrill voice and a strange accent, while pointing in the direction of my bike. I noticed something very strange in her face. I would not know how to explain it. Her skin was too pale, and her eyes were all black pupils. The woman did not look human. I stepped back, but I remembered that the sculptures were there, so I moved in a left direction towards a continuous wall. I heard her voice behind me. By this time, it was already dark, which made it difficult for me to pass. It was very strange. The whole atmosphere felt heavy, and not a single car or person on foot passed by. I reached a wall that was not very high. I did not want to look back, because the voice of that strange woman did not stop sounding in the air. Without thinking, I threw my bike over the wall. In an ordinary situation, I would have had a hard time carrying it. However, with the adrenaline levels that were circulating in my blood, I didn't even feel the weight. I immediately looked back and noticed that the woman had disappeared. Still, I didn't plan to turn around. I climbed the wall and sat on top of it. I remembered that on the other side, there was a terrace that was used as a chapel to celebrate Mass on Sundays. I jumped over the other side of the wall. I saw that it would be easy to get out through that place, since the door of its trellis was very wide underneath, so I managed to get out of the place easily. Unfortunately, when I lifted the bicycle to mount it, I noticed that it had a flat tire. I let my courage get the better of me and threw the bike to the ground. I had to walk back, dragging the bike. I arrived home very late, scared, but also obsessed with the sculptures I had seen, to the point that I even forgot that I had the canvas tied to the frame of the bicycle, something I did not remember until the next day. The next day, as soon as I returned from work, I set about the task of putting it on the front wall in my living room. When I passed by that area again in the following days, the sculptures were no longer there. As the days went by, I began to experience a series of strange events. I heard voices, which is very strange, since I live alone and have no neighbors on either side of me. Sometimes I heard a woman crying, sometimes laughing, sometimes screaming, or all together. Another thing I also noticed was that the images on the canvas changed position. Although at first I thought it was just my imagination, later I was able to verify it by photographing the canvas with my cell phone. I developed a certain phobia towards the canvas. I came up with 1,000 theories in my head. I did not know if all that, the sculptures and the canvases, belonged to that kind of witch I saw next to the sculptures, or if the witch herself was part of one of the paintings, because I remembered having seen very superficially a woman like her in one of the paintings. I resolved to remove the canvas, then I tried to burn it in a vacant lot in front of my house. I know you may not believe me, but I could not get the canvas to burn. I don't know if it had some chemical coating that prevented it from burning, because not even with gasoline or alcohol did I succeed. I also tried to erase the images from my phone, which I couldn't even format it. I left the canvas at the entrance of my house, hoping that the garbage would take it away, which did not happen in 2 days. Not even one person decided to take the canvas away. During those 2 days, I kept hearing the same voices, the one crying, the one screaming and the one laughing. My breaking point came just one morning, when I found one of the masks that the sculptors were wearing at the entrance of my house. It was the one that had impacted me the most, the one that reflected anguish. That very moment, I took the mask and the canvas, tied them to my bicycle, and pedaled to the place where I picked it up. The place was empty, except for some furniture left behind. I tried to remember the exact place where I picked up the canvas. There was a broken closet. I put the canvas in front of the furniture and ran out of the plane, trying not to turn to that place. Although I did not succeed, because by inertia, I turned my head for a few seconds. I saw the silhouette of a person who bent down to pick up the canvas. I didn't have the courage to look again, and I headed for home, pedaling hard without stopping. Fortunately, I have not heard voices or seen strange objects in that plane, or at least I have not noticed, because I maintain a certain reluctance not to look in the direction of that place. I also finally managed to delete the files on my phone. I haven't taken things left on the road either. I learned my lesson. The canvas horror story. As I reached the opening in the mesh, a strange-looking woman blocked my way. She had the face of a madwoman. She looked at me and began to curse with a shrill voice and "Thank you for joining us for this spine-tingling story. We hope you found both thrilling and thought-provoking. If you enjoyed this video, please consider participating in our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing it with your friends. Your support goes a long way in helping us create more engaging content for you. Goodbye, and may you always tread carefully in the world of the unknown.